with them. So some principles. Don't ask for a job. No one's going to like it if you go straight in. This is one of those things of just trying to get an immediate contact. So you can go in there basically maybe seeing if there's opportunities that are on the horizon at their organization or the area that they're working in or researching in. Are there opportunities coming up rather than going, are there any jobs at your company? What's the business growth like? Is it predicted to expand in the coming years? Remembering not to take up too much people's time, try not to monopolize the conversation, and try to ask open questions. So as I was saying, the kind of, well, why are you here? Why are you at this conference? It's quite an open-ended question. There'll be various different reasons that people will give. Everyone kind of has something in common. So going right back to the beginning of the presentation, we're basically talking about networking being a two-way process and having common ground between people. You've immediately got that common ground, so you can follow up with some open questions. One of the things I'd recommend is dress appropriately. Now, if you're going into a business-to-business environment or into meeting with employers, it's very likely that they could potentially be dressed in suits and quite smart. You want to try and match that. You don't want to go in sort of flip-flops and shorts and T-shirts because you're going to stand out like a sore thumb. You want to be going in looking as though you're meant to be there, that you're meant to fit, and you'll feel much more confident and you won't be so self-conscious on your own appearance. This can be much easier for men than it is for women, unfortunately. We can get away with sort of the trousers, the shirt, maybe a tie. For ladies, it's slightly more difficult. But I'm sure your career services will have information on dressing appropriately for events. And if in doubt, contact the event organizers to find out what they believe the appropriate dress would be. When it comes to food and drinks, I mentioned there's generally coffees and things at these events. Quite often at conferences, you'll find that there's going to be wine and there'll be canapes and things. Be very, very choosy with what you're going to drink and don't get drunk. It's basically the bottom line to this. Quite often the giveaways are free. It's to sort of encourage networking and sort of a nice social environment. It's not there for a free night out, is one of the things we need to say. I'd also recommend going on to some events. If there's food, choose that very wisely. One of the business events I've been at recently, they offered us bacon sandwiches. Nothing kills networking quite like walking into a room with people dripping ketchup down themselves. So be very sort of selective in the food choices. And again, fresh fruit, oranges, if you see them, stay well away. They're very difficult to eat whilst trying to talk to someone. So now I've covered the food area. What do you do to sort of like finish up? Well, if you're meeting with someone, you meet them, you network with them, you're having a conversation, you've actually got quite some common ground. Your research is connecting, there's potential job futures there. Then create a vehicle for following up. If you've got your business cards, see if you can trade business cards or give them your contact details. If you don't, see if you can give them those paper slips with your contact details on. And then follow up maybe within about sort of 72 hours is the general sort of recommended area. So that's one of the things that we'd recommend is to leave conversations which you want to follow up with the ability to do that rather than having to maybe go and Google the person or trawl through delegate lists. Actually make that personal contact with them. So finally, as we move towards the end of this presentation, I thought I'd just quickly touch again on networking for introverts. Now, obviously, as I've sort of talked this through quite a bit, but set your goals before you go. Your goal might just be to speak to someone, and it could be quite difficult to do that, so it's the communication is really the goal itself. Some top tips, the two that I've marked up there. Talk to the speaker. If you're at a conference or if you're at a presentation and someone's giving a presentation, and you've got a networking opportunity afterwards, speak to them. They've been invited. They're quite happy to talk in front of a group of people. So that icebreaker is sort of taken away straight away that they're willing to engage. And quite often what I found at the beginning of my time networking and going into rooms where there's quite senior people from organizations, it can be scary to go up to a CEO of a company and basically try to start a networking opportunity with them. But there are people in an audience at a conference, at meetings, that will ask questions. They're probably quite outgoing. They're the ones which raised up their hands. They're the ones that have the first question, that asked the sort of the pressing thing on the day. They're quite confident. They'll be quite happy to speak to people. So try and track those people down if you see them in an audience, and try and find them at the networking opportunities. There's also a web link that I put up there. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek. It's quite a comical read. It's an ex-academic over in the United States who has quite a lot to say about her time as a postgraduate student and a time as a postdoc as well. So it's worth a read. There's some articles in there on networking opportunities, how she first found them, and what she had to think of them afterwards, and the whole cold reflective cycle on how she tried to better herself at that. And eventually she then took the step away from academia as she realized that she was quite sort of a sales-orientated person. So maintain your network. This is right at the bottom of that link, the nurturing and keeping. So periodic check-ins with people in your network. Now, this might be anything from just dropping them an email afterwards to say, oh, it's great to meet you, I'll be catching up with you soon, phoning them maybe for a question or a link, but also you're doing two-way communication here. So if you see a conference or an event that's coming up and you thought, I saw them somewhere, I met them at an event that was similar to this, share that information with them. Drop them an email and just go, oh, hi so-and-so, was just wondering if you've seen this. I got an email through from my university, from my department, from wherever it came from, and thought it might be of interest to you. So that's a way that you can sort of put back into those networks and just keep those links sort of up and running. Also, it's worth to note that the nature of your network changes throughout your career. So early on, you'll have very few contacts probably. And as you go through your career as a postgrad and then you move into whichever career area you go on to, you'll start to build up your network. You'll get more contacts, more credibility, more references. And as you'll see if you use LinkedIn, the way that that grows and people start to make referrals and you get more business or more links through that area. So quite a good, useful tool to sort of nurture and maintain the network there. And it does become more give and take in time. To begin with, I am saying this is two-way communication, but to begin with, it's probably going to be a lot more take than actual give into networks, especially if you're using supervisors and PIs as starting points. However, with time and the progression that you go through, if you move from a master's into a PhD, as you progress through your PhD, it's likely that someone will soon be contacting you to be that networking point. And it's a nice feeling when it does happen, when you've got something that you can give back, and that's when it becomes more of a give and take. So it will change over the course of your career. You may feel as though you're taking too much now, but you will eventually end up giving back into networks. So if you're unsure of what to do, here's a few top tips. You've probably used networking in your day-to-day life, in your own lab, in your own tutorials, in supervisory groups, etc., and day-to-day in the coffee room, etc. You are using networking skills. You are using the bank account, the emotional bank account, on a daily basis. There are many, many networks that are out there. Your universities will have postgraduate societies in various departments, if not centrally. There'll be opportunities to engage in interdisciplinary research, to go on conferences, etc., to attend career fairs and meet with employers. So there are networks that exist. Looking outside of academia itself, there are things like professional networks that exist in many cities and towns around the UK. The Junior Chamber of Commerce, Junior Chamber International are just a couple of examples there. Remember that most people are flattered to be approached. As I said, as you go down the line and you start to become more of a contact point that people want to approach you, it is flattering to get that. People like to talk about what it is they do. People like to help others. So don't be too scared about asking people for advice, as long as you're sort of doing it in a tactful way, which is the point down at the bottom there. So if you're not using your networks, someone else will be, your peers, guys that are out there studying doctoral programs at the moment. If you're wanting to go into academia, it is very, very competitive in all subject areas. So make the most of those network opportunities you have at the moment. Find out what's going on at other institutions. Are departments expanding? Are they contracting, etc.? Which areas might you be able to look at in the future, and speak with your supervisors to sort of see what's going on in the university, especially given the whole funding cuts which are coming in. How's the university dealing with that? How's that going to impact potential future academic jobs? And outside of academia, or inside indeed, contact people. Use the likes of LinkedIn to try and find people that might be of use or value to you. People which you see at networking opportunities. See if they're sort of available and around for you to sort of follow up with afterwards. It never hurts to get in contact and make that first step. And if you're not doing it, someone else will be. But please, when you do make those first steps, be professional, be polite. Say where you've met them or where you've heard about them from, and why it is you're contacting them. And go in there with a goal that you want to try and get, but let them know what you can actually contribute back to them. So finally, questions to ask yourself. So do you get feedback from your networks? Are you asking your peers kind of how well you're networking? Be interactive in the network groups as well. So people that you've maybe met further down the line, ask them, well, how well was my initial approach? Be reflective. Do Kolb's reflective cycle on yourself each time you go to these events. Look at where your own networks start. The kitchen, the coffee room, the cafe, the bar, the student union, the postgrad staff club, wherever. You have networks which are all around you. Try and identify where you sort of fit into those and start maybe practicing some of the skills which are in this presentation on that. Set yourself some objectives, even if it's just to make a new contact. Maybe the next time you go into the office or your department next week, meet someone that you've seen but you've never actually spoken to before. You just pass them in the corridor, you pass them making a cup of coffee. Actually find out who they are, what it is they do. Let them know who you are and what it is you do in the organization. And really, what is networking to you? Are you using it for your own gains? Are you using it to the best of your advantage? Are you using it at the moment for your academic sort of areas? Which conferences, which departments should you be attending? Which academics should you maybe be speaking to at your institution and elsewhere? Or if you're using it to try and find out what job opportunities are available, looking at people in the sector, speaking to people that are out there in various sectors. LinkedIn, for example, can sort of give you great insights into that. So I'd like to leave you with a couple of links. We've obviously got LinkHigher up there, a great website that they're running. We've got also the Graduate Junction, Postgraduate Toolbox, LinkedIn itself, academia.edu. There's a couple of ones because when I most recently did this session on campus at Southampton was dealing with the doctors and bioscience areas. So there's a couple there. So if anyone is in those areas of academia, those are some helpful hints for you as well. But Google out there, there are a lot of activities that exist. So that brings me to the end of what I've actually got to say. So that's our contact details here. And if anyone does want to get in contact with me directly, you can approach me through the website there. Just put my details in if you do want to get in touch with me. So I believe now, maybe Daniel, you're opening the floor to questions. Is that right?
Yes, Richard. Thank you. Wow, that was a fantastic presentation. Networking is such a hot topic at the moment. At LinkHigher, we're very active in a lot of LinkedIn groups for PhD researchers, and almost every career-related thread that gets started finishes in a discussion of networking skills and the importance of networking. I think you've really highlighted the key points, and I've certainly found it very useful, and I'm sure that the audience has found it very useful as well. Now, we've had some questions coming in.
Yeah, my colleague here, Naeem, has been scribbling a few down as well.
So if you're happy to take the floor with those, then please.
Yeah, certainly. Okay. Well, shall I start with one that we've got here that my colleague's written down?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. One of the questions I got in is, how do I introduce myself to a complete stranger? What's a good conversation starter? And that's from David. So thanks very much for sending that in. Well, hopefully through the presentation, I was giving some sort of indication of the icebreakers that you can maybe look to use. So if you're meeting someone, say it's a stranger but they're at a conference, they're going to be at the conference for some reason. So say it's a conference on environmental change, you're an environmental scientist, they're probably there for the same sort of reasons. So a good icebreaker is going to be, well, why are you here? So what are your interests? What's your background that's drawn you to this event? If it's, say, not necessarily a conference type setup, but maybe you're walking into sort of a business-to-business type meeting, you're going there looking for career opportunities, then just the simple sort of like, well, where have you come from today? Sort of like, have you traveled far? I've come from, if it was me, I've come from Southampton. The train journey up was a bit of a nightmare. Did you experience it? Oh, it was quite easy for you to get here just from down the road. What does your company do? Those sorts of questions can be sort of quite easy to sort of like break the ice through those. So there's lots of different ways that you can try to break that.